grade. Nowadays, people call it reclassing. Some parents are making the choice to do this, especially for boys who have late birthdays, for sports or academics.
Here now to talk to us about this is Dr. Laura Saunders, a child psychologist at the Institute of Living. First and foremost, Doc, when I was growing up, if you got left back, you were that kid who got left back, and I can still remember the names of the kids that got left back, but apparently things have changed since I was in grade school.
Hello, friends. Happy Wednesday. And Scott, yes, a few things have changed since you were in elementary school.
Exactly.
Now it's almost a trend.
Go ahead.
I said now it's almost like a trend. You hear about this all the time, especially with boys with late birthdays.
Yes, and there is a difference between retention, right? Retention is what you're referring to, Scott, where kids are held back basically for serious academic issues. So that's retention, right? And it's actually done much less frequently now than it was in the past because they see actually that it has some serious psychological impacts to feel like your peers are moving on and you're being held back. There's often used to be a lot of shame attached to that, but this is a different process. This is reclassing. So this is usually at a transition point, like into middle school or middle school into high school or high school, doing a fifth year of high school, holding someone back to really talk about or to make decisions around reasons to hold them back. And so it's done for academic, but actually more often these days it's done because of an athletic advantage. And oftentimes it's for individuals, more boys and girls, it's for individuals who tended to have late birthdays anyway, because Connecticut does not have statutory birthday cutoffs like other states such as New Jersey.
Yeah, so let's talk about it, because it often seems, especially, and maybe it's the people who have more financial advantages, they might have done it, they might have kept them home longer, didn't send them off to school because they wanted them to be older and bigger. Or now you're realizing, okay, my child has ADHD, or my child just doesn't seem to be able to handle organizational issues, and they're going to have to go to high school, and or I want my child to be bigger. So what do we consider from a psychological impact? So you're not just making these decisions in a way that could hurt your child down the road. I mean, is there a time where it would help them?
Yeah, I mean, if it's done in a way that the child feels forced to stay back or is really not on board with the reasons behind it, and it feels that now their peers are moving ahead and advancing when they're not. So the psychological impact could be great. This is something that really does require some intensive discussion. I would discuss it with school personnel. They actually cannot make a recommendation one way or another, but to get a good sense of how your child fits in with their same age peers, especially if there's social and emotional issues. Physical growth is one thing. Yes, if your child's now a year older, they might be either more at height or taller based on their kind of developmental trajectory for height. But it really requires some very intensive discussions. It is a very serious decision to make. And honestly, I do think this is a decision where the child needs to be on board with it.
Yeah, I cannot imagine that a kid would want to spend an extra year in the K through 12 process, and they're going to have to be convinced that this is good for them.
Yes, they're definitely going to have to be convinced. And what I also worry about in some of these situations is even if it's for athletics, right? Kids change their mind, right?
Yeah,
they might think
absolutely.
that they want to be a football player or a basketball player or a lacrosse player or whatever it is, and then decide that, by mid-high school, they're kind of tired of it, or it's too much, or they're maybe not going to do it in college because college sports are a tremendous time commitment, and you really do need good organizational skills to get through that. So sometimes the best intentions really don't pan out for these kids.
So if I'm reading you right, it sounds like you are not a huge proponent of doing this unless there's a big reason.
There needs to be a very serious reason, because it actually puts a lot of pressure on the child. Again, if you're doing it for growth or for sports reasons, that means that child really needs to stay involved in that sport. And my hope is that at whatever point you're making this decision, they love that sport, but you don't even know what could happen in 2 years. We've just been through a global pandemic where everything got shut down.
Right.
So, and I hope that never happens again, but there's so many factors that are hard to consider. And again, the child would really need to be on board because they're going to see their same age peers step up into another grade and step up into other milestones that they're not doing. I mean, they will do them in a year, but a year in the life of a teen is a massive amount of time.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight, Dr. Laura. We so appreciate it.
We're going to talk a little bit more about it, even the decision of do you hold them when they're younger, on the Care is Cures podcast. We'll get a little more in depth. Thanks, Dr. Saunders. See you on the podcast.
Yes, I look forward to it.